Welcome back to Craft Corner. Today we're going to do some hand warmers. As the weather has got so cold, I had cold fingers the other day and I thought, brilliant idea. And also, it's very good if you like to use your computer and you have the mouse and your hand gets very cold on the mouse, you can put it on top of your hand and you have a warm hand while you're using your computer. They're brilliant ideas. So we need some fabric and some paper. We need some rice to go in it and some needle and cotton and pins. I think that's all. So if you get a piece of paper and measure 4 inches, do a 4-inch square. And then find yourself a scrap of fabric. It only takes a tiny bit. If you've got big hands, you can have it 4.5 inches if you want to. But I only have smaller hands, so 4 inches is plenty for me.
Ah, look at those tiny hands.
So if you've got a pen, draw around your template. I've got a little bit of an edge there, so I don't have to draw all the way round, just 3 sides. Oops. There we are. So now we know where to cut out. So cut your square of fabric out. This is good for using up small bits of fabric that's left over. If you do any dressmaking, there's always little bits left over. And a little 4-inch square is good to use.
Stand up because I can see what you're doing easier.
Okay. There we are, nearly got there. That's it. I'll put the bits out the way. And I've already cut another one out, so I've got 2 pieces there with little birds on. They're very cute. So now we want the right sides together. And just put some pins in to fasten them together so they don't slide about when you're sewing them.
All the corners.
Yes, it's easier that way. Right, now you will be filling it with rice with a teaspoon. So what I usually do is put my spoon there and then pin it each side, giving it a generous amount so that you can get your rice in easily. Okay, so there's a good bit
Room
each
for
side.
a spoon.
Room for a spoon, yes. And then you start sewing, and I shall sew it with a contrasting thread so you can see what I'm doing. So you start this side and you go all the way round and you stop there, so you have the opening so that you can fill it. Okay, so I usually start with a couple of stitches, one on top of the other.
It's best to start sewing with stitches.
Yes, but some people start with a knot, you see. And I usually do 3 stitches, one on top of the other. Now I can take that pin out because I've done that bit there, and then that's firm in. So then we do little stitches. Oops, I can't even sew through it. And I normally do a back stitch because then that makes the stitches smaller, because we don't want the rice to go through. So you see.
What's a back stitch, Mum?
A back stitch is, you've done the little stitch and then you come back halfway between where it went in and where it came out, and then you can do another stitch across. And then you come back halfway between, so then you only get tiny stitches there. And we just go into a corner, so I won't go too far, and then turn the corner, and then we just do a little stitch and then halfway again. So that makes the stitches tiny, but it's not too difficult to do.
Clever.
All right, I have got one already done, so we can move on. This one I did in white, so you won't be able to see it very well. So where's my end? That's my end. So there, it's sewn. It's sewn all the way round. You can't see it very easily because it's in white. So then you snip the corners, but make sure you don't snip your stitches. There's my stitches down there. If you're bothered about cutting these stitches, put a pin in where the stitching is. You just snip off the corners and then it will turn easily. Yeah, all 4 corners snipped, and then we turn it the right way round.
You have to push it all through.
A bit fiddly, little bit fiddly, and then I shall use my
It's like when you change your quilt.
Yeah, that's it. Only not quite so
Not quite
hard.
so annoying.
Quilts are a lot more difficult to handle because they're bigger. And you've got nearly get inside them sometimes.
Sometimes. Have to go in with the duvet.
So I push the corners right out. And that one, come on, you don't. Yeah, you can do it, little corner. Yeah, right out. And the last one. There we are. That's it. Right, now let's get the rice. Oh,
Heavy
I've
box
got
of rice, is it?
big pot, which is much easier. This is not what we use for puddings. This is what Jo uses for her toddler group to play with, so it doesn't have to be kept really hygienic for eating. So I can put the material in it without too much bother. So filling it with a spoon. If I make many of these, Jo will have to buy some more rice.
I'll have to buy some more anyway.
There we are.
So how much do you put in?
A
Where
little
do you
bit
fill
more.
it to?
1/2 to 3/4. Yeah, that's probably it.
It's such a creaky table when I lean on it.
It is. I think maybe I've got a little bit too much there. Let's tip a little bit out. There we are. Now I have to thread my needle.
Oh. Is this going to be fun to watch?
Let's have one with a decent eye.
Oops, I put my finger across the screen.
I won't use that one. That's a needle with a blunt end for doing embroidery.
Oh, you don't want that.
There we are. That's not too bad.
Well done. First try.
So fold your edges in. There we are. If you want a really not seen edge, let me move that rice out of the way. Oh, I don't want to drop it on the floor, else there'll be a lot of clearing up. If you want a really unseen seam, you can just go in the edge, take a little stitch that side, and then a little stitch that side, which is a bit awkward sometimes. So I just go over the top.
You don't mind if people see your stitches? I don't mind.
Tiny stitches just over the edge. It's not really noticeable. Oops, I nearly stitched my finger.
Don't do that. It's not very professional.
No.
But it does happen.
It does, that's right. So tiny stitches over the edge, and it won't really be noticed. Depends how big a gap you've done. Depends how big a spoon you've got.
That's what colours
it takes a little while.
What thread do you use? I couldn't think of the word then.
Yeah, yes, you can't see my thread now because it's white. Cream thread for a cream background.
You could make it a different colour to be more striking.
You could.
If you fancy.
Yes, you could. I think I'll leave that now because I've nearly done it. You know what to do now. If you want to make it pretty, this one is a 4.5 inch one. I think I filled it a bit extra full too with rice. And it's got blanket stitch around the edge. So if you want to do a blanket stitch, I started by just doing a couple of stitches in the seam, like I started the other one, but just in the seam so it doesn't show. And then you have to make sure you have your thread over to the side, and you just go in the bottom. This is how I was taught when I went to school, to do a blanket stitch like that. Other people do it differently, but this is how I do it. If you're bothered about the line, you can put some pins in to show you where to start, because it's neat if you can get it all at the same size and not up and down in different places. But just leave the thread to the back and just move along a little bit and go right through so the thread tucks around.
So you're kind of stitching over your own separate extra thread.
Yeah, you just loop it at the back. So
okay.
It just makes a line along the edge. And this is how they used to do blankets years ago. I don't think I did that one in the right place. That stitch is much longer.
Oh dear.
And I was just saying about it. Yes, never mind.
Didn't put a pin in.
And then when you come to the end, if you just stitch into the seam again, 1, 2, I usually do about 3 stitches, and then that is held nice and tight and you can snip it off. Then you have a pretty one.
Oh, very nice.
And if you put them in the microwave we tried this one, we put it in for 30 seconds and it was a bit hot. So more like 20 seconds or maybe 30 seconds for a bit bigger one.
Got a bigger one.
And if you've been using them for a little while, heating them for a little while, they dry out. And so if you get an egg cup and put a drop of water into it and put it in the back corner of your microwave, when you microwave it, that just puts that little bit of moisture back into them so it doesn't dry out. And you can use oils with them if you want. If you want lavender oil, sometimes they put lavender oil. Sometimes they just put it into the rice as they're putting it in to make it smell a bit nicer. And it's supposed to be very soothing and help you to sleep, which you don't want if you just want cold hands.
You don't know who wants cold hands.
Yes, but if you have a tiny one, you can slip it into your glove maybe on a cold day.
Could do.
When you're going out.
Put them in your coat pockets.
Yes, coat pockets. Yes, so as the weather gets cooler, you can have toasty fingers.
Very nice.
Right.
Let's say goodbye to everybody.
Yes. Bye-bye.